issues with the suppression of information by social media companies and internet companies that led up to that election. And do I believe that it's not a dispute. So I think that's a problem. But in the technical sense of, do I think that there was large-scale ballot fraud or whatever that changed the election outcome based on how the votes were counted? I have seen no evidence of that.
I want to ask you about an issue that was key in the minds of many voters during these most recent midterms, and that's abortion. Would you sign further abortion restrictions into federal law?
I would not, but I am pro-life. For years, I was an opponent of Roe v. Wade. I think it was constitutionally wrongly decided. I think Dobbs was correct to overturn it because the federal government has no business here. Murder laws are governed by the states. So if abortion is a form of murder, which is the pro-life position, and I am pro-life, then it would make no sense for that to be the one law that was still governed at the federal level. But a federal ban violates the constitutional principle that led us to actually overturn Roe v. Wade, which is why I would not sign the federal abortion.
Mr. Ramaswamy, in terms of prepping for this interview, I was listening to a lot of interviews you've done, reading through other reports, and one of the takeaways that I had is that it seems you want to make a number of decisions unilaterally. For example, abolishing the Department of Education, shutting down the FBI, deploying troops to the U.S. border, ending affirmative action. So the question I have is, do you see any limits on the power of the presidency?
Of course, it's called the Constitution. And so, let's take the last one, ending affirmative action by executive order. The reason why I say that is it was created by executive order. So I'm just talking about rescinding an old executive order, Lyndon Johnson's executive order 11246, which requires anyone who does business with the federal government to actually adopt effectively race-based quota systems. I'll end that by executive order. So I'm a careful student of the Constitution. I think there are certain things the president can and ought to do without asking Congress for permission or forgiveness. I think running the executive branch of the government is on that list. There are many things, like, for example, my position to make political expression a civil right. I'd love to do that, but a president can't do that without actually working through Congress. And then there's things that the federal government, both the president and Congress, should be doing that should be left to the states. This is actually where our abortion discussion came in. And so I think it's important to have a clear-eyed constitutional perspective of what falls in each category. I believe that I do, and I will govern accordingly.
You've also proposed a change to the Constitution, at least one. You're promoting raising the voting age to be 25. It seems like a difficult pitch to win over young voters in this country. Why did you make that decision?
Well, I want to be precise about what I actually said. So I would support a constitutional amendment. This would require widespread support for an amendment to the Constitution, of course. That would raise the voting age to 25, but still allow you to vote at age 18 if you either serve for 6 months in the military or a first responder role, or else, even if you don't serve, if you pass the same civics test that every immigrant has to pass in order to become a citizen of this country.
Now you're saying there would be two different thresholds for when you get to vote.
Yeah, so we lowered the voting age to 18 in the context of the military draft. That was the justification in 1971 for lowering the voting age. So you're right, you can't do this by law, because if it was by law, it would be unconstitutional. But if you're following the constitutional process to amend the Constitution, as we have 27 times over, for the better, adding equal protection under the law for race, no discrimination on voting on the basis of race, making the voting age 18, giving women the right to vote, that's a constitutional amendment process. I think we should go through that constitutional amendment process to attach civic duties to vote. Now the why, that's the more important question you asked. I think we have a loss of civic pride in our country. I think people, young people included, do not value a country that they simply inherit. I think we value a country that we have a stake in building. And I think that asking a young person, asking any citizen to know something about the country before voting, I think is a perfectly reasonable condition. Or else if you don't know something about the country, we already ask immigrants to know this, by the way, so it's not making up some new test. No matter your skin color, if you've been a taxpaying green card holder for 10 years, you still have to pass that test to vote. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask a young American to do the same thing. Or else, if they don't want to do that, to at least serve for 6 months in the military or first responder role. Or else to have some life experience as an adult, at least by the age of 25. You're going to hear more of the conversation with Vivek Ramaswamy today on the NPR Politics Podcast. This is NPR News.
And you're listening to Michigan Radio, Michigan's NPR News Leader. Coming up a little bit later this hour, we'll take a look at how Nobel Prize-winning American economist Robert Lucas changed the field of macroeconomics. He died this week at the age of
the debt limit would be, quote, catastrophic for the financial system. She said the consequences of inaction would be severe. David Burra, NPR News, New York. This is NPR News.
With Michigan Radio News, I'm Doug Tribune. Michigan's jobless rate took another dip in April. Michigan Radio's Steve Carmody reports.
According to the state's Department of Technology Management budget, Michigan's unemployment rate dropped to 3.8% in April. That's down 0.3 of 1 percentage point from March's jobless rate of 4.1%. But it's still higher than the national unemployment rate. Last month, that was 3.4%. Governor Gretchen Whitmer says the new data shows Michigan's economy is moving. Though state labor officials say Michigan's labor force remains below pre-pandemic levels. I'm Steve Carmody.
The parents of the Oxford High School shooter have asked the Michigan Supreme Court to dismiss manslaughter charges filed against them. That's after two lower courts rejected the legal efforts filed by James and Jennifer Conway. The parents say they had no way of knowing their son would carry out a mass shooting. The prosecutor says the parents could have stopped the crime before it happened by securing the gun, which was a birthday gift. Their son has pleaded guilty to 24 charges, including murder and terrorism. He was 15 at the time of the shooting. Some Michigan House lawmakers are responding to recent widespread blackouts with a new task force. Michigan Radio's Colin Jackson has more.
The Energy Reliability, Resilience, and Accountability Task Force is planning a statewide listening tour this summer. Its chair, Democratic Representative Elena Scott, says new bills will come from the feedback it gathers. She says utilities need the nudge to ensure blackouts don't keep happening, while the Michigan Public Service Commission would welcome the help.
It doesn't look like they made any changes today, right? So that's the purpose of the task force. MPSC also said that the legislators need to implement change, and they would follow it. And so that's what we're going to do.
DTE Energy, one of the companies involved in this winter's outages, says it already has a plan to transform the electric grid through updates and tree trimming. I'm Colin Jackson in Lansing.
DTE Energy is among Michigan Radio's corporate sponsors. In the Michigan Radio weather forecast today, we'll have a mix of sun and clouds to start. There is a chance of off and on showers and thunderstorms. We'll have highs ranging from the mid-60s in West Michigan to the upper 70s in parts of Metro Detroit. You're listening to Michigan Radio News. Find more at michiganradio.org.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from Bank of America, offering access to resources and digital tools designed to help local to global companies make moves for their businesses. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/banking for business. And from Indeed, a hiring platform designed to streamline the hiring process. Indeed works to help businesses attract, interview, and hire candidates in one place. More at Indeed.com/NPR. This is NPR.
This is Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm Martinez in Culver City, California.
And I'm Layla Fulton in Washington, D.C. The 21-year-old Massachusetts National Guard airman accused of leaking sensitive U.S. intelligence on the internet faces another court hearing today. A judge is expected to decide whether Jack Teixeira can be released to his father while awaiting trial on espionage charges. From member station WBUR reporter Deborah Becker joins us to talk about the latest in this case. Deborah, what's the defense expected to argue?
They're expected to say that Teixeira is young, he's always lived in Massachusetts, has no criminal record or history of violence. Defense attorneys say if he's released, Teixeira would be in the custody of his dad, who's a former correction officer. His stepfather is a former National Guard member. And they say Teixeira would adhere to any strict conditions, such as electronic monitoring, staying away from guns and computers. They wrote in a brief that they feel the prosecution's characterizations of Teixeira as a flight risk are exaggerated, and in a new court filing this week, they point to other espionage cases where the accused have been released pre-trial under a set of strict conditions.
And what about the prosecution?
The government has said Teixeira should continue to be held in a Massachusetts jail because they say he's proven he doesn't follow the rules. In their new filing this week, they say Teixeira's supervisors at the base in Massachusetts reprimanded him repeatedly for accessing sensitive documents, but he ignored them. They questioned whether Teixeira would abide by any bail conditions set by the judge, And the documents that Teixeira allegedly posted in an online chat group pertain to the war in Ukraine and U.S. spy operations. So prosecutors have also argued that a foreign government could offer to help Teixeira leave the U.S. in exchange for other information that he might have. And additionally, the prosecutors say Teixeira is a flight risk. He's facing serious charges that carry a maximum of 25 years in prison.
Now, this is the second detention hearing. Why was a second hearing necessary?
The judge in this case, federal judge David Hennessy, held a lengthy hearing on this last month, about 2 weeks after Teixeira was arrested. Judge Hennessy took the case under advisement. Former federal prosecutors say it's likely that the judge is considering the defense claims about Teixeira's age and his lack of a criminal record, and is giving the defense time to put together a release proposal. So at today's hearing, presumably that proposal will be gone over, as well as any new arguments about what prosecutors might cite for keeping him in custody.
Now, prosecutors have mentioned they have other evidence against Teixeira.
That's right. Prosecutors said during a search of the home that Teixeira was living in with his mother and stepfather, FBI agents found a gun locker near his bed containing handguns and rifles, an AK-style high-capacity weapon, a gas mask. Also, an FBI affidavit alleges that Teixeira sent messages to members of a private group on a gaming site that encouraged and threatened violence. And they say when Teixeira was 16 years old, he was suspended from high school after a classmate overheard him make remarks about weapons and guns at school. Teixeira disputed that at the time and said she had been talking about a video game.
That's WBUR reporter Deborah Becker. Thanks, Deborah.
Welcome.
Sherelle Parker won the Democratic mayoral primary this week in Philadelphia. It's a Democratic Party stronghold, so she's expected to win the general election in November. And if she does, she'll become the first woman mayor to lead the city. I spoke with Sherelle Parker earlier about how crime is a major concern in Philadelphia. The issue is also the top of voters' minds across the country, but I started off by asking her about her primary win.
I really want to thank the people of our great city, the People Power Coalition that we put together, quite frankly, that transcended race, class, gender, religion, in every portion of the city, in particular those people whose lives are feeling the most pain in my city. Those are the people whose voices were heard loud and clear.
And one of the things, Cheryl, I do for a living is to listen to people's voices, as you have listened to people's voices as well. I hear in your voice someone that's very, very tired. How much has this taken out of you, at least for now?
Well, actually, what's struck around, believe it or not, that I was a couple of days ago, I was dealing with some little issues. And you're right, my boys little had this straight, because we were to fill itself with teaching out schools, our best to reach people in every point in our city. A message regarding a safer, cleaner, and greener city that will provide access to economic opportunities for all is resonated.
Now, you've gone against the more progressive wing of your party by pledging to hire hundreds of police officers and bringing back so-called constitutional standards. What would you like progressives who back someone else who I don't know about you? What would you like to say?
I would like to see that, unlike others, not really moving here. It's focused to the people feeling the most pain in our city. I am a mother, a single with mother, to a 10-year-old black boy, and never will I allow every great city to turn back their hands of time and think that